as I often do, uh, I set up these X spaces impromptu because I just react to something. Of course, as I always say, if I want to increase the chances of people coming to these sessions, I should be making them on a regular basis with a specific time that everybody knows that I'm going to be holding these sessions. And of course, I still hope to do that, but I just came across in a world that is now insanely filled with open Jew hatred. Uh, we have some new entrants into that game. Uh, Most notably, recently, Candace Owens. Uh, I haven't spoken to Candace in many years. I posted, some of you may have seen, I posted a chat that I held with her more than 6 years ago in 2018. This is when she was sort of coming out as, the black conservative. And, she was saying some valuable things that, hey, people are not monolithic in their voting behaviors and their ideology, judge people, as individuals. And of course, that resonates with me. And so I had, we had set up a chat and she came on the chat. We had a wonderful, conversation. And I posted it. You could go listen to it. And then I didn't follow very closely some of the stuff that had been happening recently with her and Daily Wire and so on. But then recently, I kept getting tagged by people saying, hey, check this stuff out, check what she's saying. And frankly, I don't have a clear sense of what she's saying. I've never heard of many of the terms, the the faux Jews or the crypto Jews or the Frankists and all this kind of stuff. It's stuff straight out of protocols of the elders of Zion. It's stuff that I grew up with in the Middle East. So while the details of whatever conspiracy theory she's spinning I'm unfamiliar with, there's a broader point to discuss here. So I wanted to just take a few minutes. I don't have many prepared notes, but I think I hopefully have a few interesting points to raise that will have made it worthwhile for you to join me in such an impromptu manner on a Sunday evening. So the first thing I want to talk about is the psychology of a conspiratorial mindset. Now that doesn't just apply to, the Jews did it. Conspiracies are very psychologically alluring because it allows the conspiracy spinner to be able to, quote, make sense of an otherwise chaotic and stochastic and unpredictable world. And so if I can find some culprit, some agent, some puppeteer, some forces that are behind all of the nastiness that I see, then that gives me a greater sense of existential control, right? Because it's not all just random shit that's happening. There is a puppeteer, and if we could only address the puppeteer, then we could solve the problem. Now that puppeteer could be anything. It could be Davos, it could be the Illuminati, it could be a Kabbalah, from Yale University that runs all presidential elections. It could be, of course, the Jews. So the idea that there is a grand conspiracy that is behind the scenes orchestrating everything that happens to us is something that unfortunately is a indelible part of the architecture of human cognition. Okay. Now I've seen this in many settings. So I recently came back from Southern California where I got to know someone who, every single thing that you could think of, he spins a conspiracy to it. So that person may have been stricken with a disease, while there is actually an exact conspiracy of how that came about. If you think that there is a cure for that disease, but that he doesn't have, there is a conspiracy to why that happened. There is an issue with gluten. There is a bakery, pharma conspiracy to. So basically, it's a way to view the world that allows me to very quickly make sense of the world. Okay. Now, for reasons that I will get into, Jew hatred and blaming the Jews for all problems is the ultimate form, the most enduring form of conspiracy theories. Now, what is the reason for that? There are several reasons. I'll just discuss a few. It's certainly worth for me to write an entire book on this, and actually, I was thinking of doing that, but then I got sidetracked by other projects, including my forthcoming book titled Suicidal Empathy, which I hope that you will all get. Let me first discuss, well, before I discuss I want to read to you something from my Parasitic Mind book. I want to read, this is from page 125 and page 126. So I'm going to read it verbatim, and you'll see why it's relevant to what we're talking about. Why do individuals succumb to such shoddy thinking? Here I'm talking about the various types of shoddy thinking that I discuss in the Parasitic Mind. In his book, The Conduct of Inquiry, the philosopher Abraham Kaplan wrote, quote, "In addition to the social pressures from the scientific community, there is also at work a very human trait of individual scientists. I call it the law of instrument, and it may be formulated as follows. Give a small boy a hammer, and he will find that everything he encounters needs pounding. It comes as no particular surprise to discover that a scientist formulates problems in a way which requires for their solution just those techniques in which he himself is especially skilled." Now, that's a very powerful quote. Now, let me go on. The humanist psychologist Abraham Maslow, in The Psychology of Science, added, quote, "I suppose it is tempting, if the only tool you have is a hammer, to treat everything as if it were a nail." So that's exactly what ends up happening with conspiracy theories. They're a form of existential hammers. I view the world as it can't be anything other than the diabolical Jews that are causing all these. So in the Middle East, as I explained in the Parasitic Mind, if it rained today, it's the fault of the Jew, because who controls the rain? It's the Jews. If you got cancer, why did you get cancer? Who controls the cure for cancer? It's the Jews. And because Jews are greedy, they don't want to release that. This is not stuff that I'm making up. It's everyday stuff. If your wife got schlocked by the sexy gardener that comes to tend your bushes, so to speak, well, why did she sleep with him? Who peddles pornography? It's the Jews. How did she decide to succumb to her libidinous drive? It's because she probably watched some porn. So who put those ideas in her? It's the Jew. Okay? And it goes on and on and on. It is not only a loss of your humanity as a critical thinking person, it's a loss of your humanity in that your soul is forever poisoned by the nastiest form of existential hatred. Everything is caused by the Jews. The recession is caused by the Jews. Who controls banking, right? Immigration problems are caused by the Jews because the Jews control immigration. I mean, for 15 million people around the world, we are some pretty powerful assholes, right? Even though, by the way, that many of those statements are demonstrably false, it doesn't matter, right? Reality be damned. It is very comforting to know that once we've identified the culprit, the Jew, then hopefully by eradicating that problem, we can move on with our lives, right? There is a group of guys that wore really, really snazzy suits and had greased back hair. Do you remember them in Germany? Who said, look, the Jew is a parasite. We are suffering in Germany because Jews are a cancer. They're like a pancreatic cancer. They are literally a parasite. So by us eradicating the Jew from our midst, then we cure our country. But that is stated in the Middle East. It's stated, of course, in the Middle Ages in Europe. It's stated. Now, many Jew haters will say, but it can't be the fault of the Jew. I mean, he's been, the number I hear, I don't know where they got that number, he's been kicked out of 109 countries. The extent to which that statement is laughably hateful is incredible. You know what? Women have been raped in 200 countries, but sure, it must be the fault of men because women have no fault in being raped. I mean, if women had no fault, why is it that they're being raped in 200 countries? Do you see the exact isomorphic logical equivalency in these two statements? The fact that Jews are kicked out and hated and exterminated in those countries is for real ugly reasons. It doesn't demonstrate that it's because Jews are deserving of that. There are several reasons for it. Let me explain it to you. And hopefully you can share this impromptu chat with all of your friends. Although, I wish millions of people would listen to this. Amy Chua, who's a wonderful professor of law at Yale University, who was actually the mentor of J.D. Vance, the current VP nominee on the Republican ticket, when he was a law student at Yale. She's been on my show. She's a wonderful woman. She's written the book on, Tiger Moms. But she wrote a book called World on Fire, where she basically introduced a concept, which, of course, we knew that concept, because the Jew hatred has existed for millennia. But she called it market dominant minorities, meaning that in many cultures, you have an extraordinarily small number of minority that pretty much controls the entire majority of that society. So, for example, here I'm taking it from a reference here. So, Chua notes that the Chinese community in the Philippines comprise 1% of the population, but control 60% of the private economy, with the result being resentment on the part of the Filipino majority against the Chinese minority, creating an ethnic conflict. Similarly, in Indonesia, the Chinese Indonesian community make up 3% of the population, but control 75% of the economy. Similar patterns occur throughout other Southeast Asian economies. I read this from the summary of her book on Wikipedia. Of course, Thomas Sowell, the famous economist, has also talked about these market-dominant economies, none of which are more dominant as a minority than the Jews, because the Jews lead in philosophy and in medicine and in science and in arts and in culture and in law and in banking, and way more so than their demographic representation, their per capita representation. And now we could talk about the reasons why Jews consistently are overrepresented in terms of excellence and success. But let's leave that aside for a second. So if I am in a country where Jews make up well below 1% of the population, yet when I go to my physician, he's a Jew. When I go to the top accountant, he's a Jew. When I go to the top lawyer, he's a Jew. When I go to the top professor, he's a Jew. Well, I can do one of two things. I can either say, hey, what is it in these guys that they may have that we can try to emulate, and so that hopefully we can be as successful? Or I could spin a much more comforting hatred to the Jew, because what could explain that these diabolical parasites can be so successful? Okay, which basically brings me back to another. I'm hitting you with a lot of meat here, so I hope that many of you will subscribe to my reciprocity is a Darwinian mechanism, people. It's Saturday night. I just came back from California. I'm exhausted. I came back 2 days ago, but I'm doing this because of the purity of the dignity of being free of all of these cancerous forms of hatred. If we thought that slavery was grotesque, surely we could think that Jew hatred is grotesque. And once we normalize openly Jew hatred, it truly is the proverbial canary in the coal mine. When I'm able to open up my X account and have thousands of people send me the most unbelievable hatred that you could imagine, that's not a good thing. That doesn't lead to a good outcome. But let me now mention another important psychological mechanism that explains why Jews are so hated. In psychology, there's something called the self-serving bias. The self-serving bias is a form of personal attribution whereby you attribute successes internally and you attribute failures externally. Okay, so meaning, let me give you a concrete example, one that I've given on many previous occasions. If I did well on the exam, it's because I am super smart and because I studied hard. So I attributed the success on the exam to me. It's because of me that I did well. Now, if I did very poorly on the exam, I attribute that failure externally. I did poorly on the exam because Professor Saad is a Jew. I did very poorly on the exam because Professor Saad is unfair. He's an asshole. He tricked us, right? So think about an entrepreneur that fails in his business. That person could say, let me do an honest inventory of why I failed. Now, I could say, well, probably because I didn't listen to the right information, maybe because I didn't market my product properly, maybe because I overpriced, but those would involve me attributing my failures internally. It's a lot more psychologically comforting for me to say, well, consumers are idiots. Well, God didn't want me to succeed. Now, why am I talking about all this? Imagine if I can offer you a single existential reason for all of your failures. Yeah, you got it. It's the fucking Jew. You didn't do well on the exam? What was your professor? He was Jewish, wasn't he? Your wife cheated on you with the sexy guy with the 9-inch penis? Why did she cheat on you? Who peddles pornography? Where did she get the idea to cheat on you? It was probably because of Jews. You're having trouble all over the West with Islamic immigration? Who lets in Islamic immigration? The Jews. Does it matter that this is completely false? Jews don't control the immigration policy of Canada. Jews don't control the immigration policies of France, Sweden, Denmark, Spain, Italy, Britain. But facts be damned. It's the Jews that are behind it. Therefore, let me come to the next point. Maybe you've heard of this mathematical equation. 3 Muhammads gang rape your daughter equals Mordechai is to blame. Are you familiar with that mathematical equation? I posted a while ago on my social media the police photo of the people who were caught having groomed and gang raped a bunch of young British white girls in just one town. It was done in many, many towns up and down England. Thousands and thousands of British white girls that were gang raped by one group of men that share one thing in common. And so I posted the photo of those 20 men along with their names. Now, this is coming from the Telegraph. It's coming from BBC. It's right. I mean, these are all documented stuff. Now, let me summarize you their names. Muhammad Ahmad Muhammad, Ahmad Ahmad Muhammad, Muhammad Hussein Ahmad, Ahmad Ahmad Muhammad, Muhammad Muhammad Ahmad, Muhammad Muhammad Hussein, Hussein Ali Muhammad. And so I posted that and I said, I'm not smart enough to be able to detect a pattern. I don't have the big data AI methodology to be able to put it all together. Can anybody help me to tell me who is to blame for this? Can we pin it on any ideology? Can we pin it on any particular unifying group of people? If I told you that hundreds, if not thousands of people wrote to me with incomplete quote seriousness that yes, that's the fault of the Jews. So let me get this straight. Your daughter was gang raped by 3 Muhammads and it's Mordechai and Moshe to blame? So we kept it in the M family, but we just moved it from Muhammad to Moshe. And how is it that Moshe is guilty? It's because it's Moshe that's the architect of immigration. Imagine how much you've lost your humanity when you violate the, the, the link of cause and effect, right? Isaac Newton talked about every action has a reaction. Once you violate A causes B and you can't see that, then you can't navigate in the world with full dignity as a human being because you don't care about the causes. It doesn't matter if your eyes are showing you what open border immigration is causing to the West. your net conclusion of that is that Zionism is the problem. Okay? By the way, this is why the parasitic mind was, forgive me for, I don't mean to be immodest, why it was the international bestseller that it was. Because it is parasitic thinking that causes you to walk to the abyss of infinite lunacy, completely unshackled to reality. There is no coupling between the conclusions that you arrive at and what your lying eyes are telling you. Because once I commit to proposing that all problems are caused by the Jews, I can't extricate myself from that. I can't unsee that. So coming back to Candace Owens, I don't know what happened with Candace that she suddenly decided to go down that route. To me, frankly, and I'm not, diagnosing her from afar. I'm not a clinical psychologist, albeit I'm certainly the global therapist of the world. She does look unhinged. She does look, there is a Britney Spears quality to her dead eyes, to her hatred, right? Because to argue that not United States, Israel exists because a bunch of Frankists, now I keep being tagged, I never heard that word before, right? I mean, I come from 6,000 years of Jews. We've never heard that term before, okay? Frankists got together and created the country of Israel in order to promote pedophilia. That's the argument. And then people say, well, why don't you disprove that with evidence? Well, okay, I think that you and your family are baby killers who suck the blood of children and who rape them. Prove that that's not true. The onus is on you to prove it. Hey, motherfucker, that's not how American jurisprudence works. American jurisprudence works with, I'm innocent, you prove that I'm guilty, not I prove that I'm not guilty. That's called the Napoleonic Code. Okay, that's not how the epistemology of truth works. I don't have to prove that Israel is not a Frankist country made up of pedophiles. That we operate in a world where someone with her platform can say this and be emboldened to say this is not a good thing. Now, by the way, I'm just going to put up a satirical thing that I posted earlier today. Let me just look for it here. Give me a second. I'm going to post it. Hold on a second. Oh, I just put up a satirical. Give me a second. One second. Yes, this is it. This was about an hour ago. So this is it's a satirical interaction between Hitler and Candace. So Hitler says, hey, Candace, I'm highly appreciative of your Jew hatred, but perhaps tone it down a bit. It's making my friends Goebbels and Himmler also uncomfortable. Candace replies, shut up, you Frankist. Your love of Jews makes me sick. You are a pedophile, just like your Jew family. Hitler responds, Heil Candace. And Candace finally retorts, you're Jew filth. That's literally the level of discourse that we're seeing. Now, I don't care what Candace says. I wasn't even aware of what she was doing and saying until I saw her rupture with Ben Shapiro, whom I know. And then I started getting tagged by a million people saying, hey, can you rebut her? I said, okay, well, let me go see what it is that I have to rebut. And then I tried to listen to the chat, and it's that of a completely unhinged maniac, right? It's frothing at the mouth, Nazi-level Jew hatred. There's nothing for me to rebut. Now, some people say, oh, how do you then explain Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, guess what, assholes? There are really nice Jews and there are really horrible Jews. No one contests that. There are incredibly kind Muslims and there are incredibly nasty Muslims. There are incredibly nice Christians and incredibly nasty Christians, right? Think about the Catholic Church with its lovely pederasts, priests, industrial scale level for 2,000 years of raping the little boys, the little choir boys. Does that mean that all Catholics are pedophiles? Of course not. It means that in any group of people, there is a normal distribution of very nice people and very nasty people. When I criticize Islam, I'm criticizing the tenets of Islam. I have more Muslim friends than probably all the people that are listening to this chat combined, right? So I don't need to be lectured about individuals. There are very nice Jews and very mean Jews. Harvey Weinstein is a very bad Jew. That doesn't mean that Israel exists to do hashtag Me Too on women, right? So proving that there is a Jew that engages in horrifying behavior doesn't grant you the epistemological right to start spewing nonsense. By the way, though, I said that contrary to what many people are saying about Candace, I support her right to spew her nonsense. So imagine how much I walk the talk, walk the walk and talk the talk, because the stuff that Candace is saying is truly chilling. And one can easily argue it can lead to violence, right, against Jews. But being an absolutist when it comes to freedom of speech, I believe that short of direct and specific incitement to violence, you have to tolerate the most egregious forms of speech. I mean, yes, you can't defame people, you can't libel people, you can't get a chat going for pedophilia, you can't incite violence, but racist stuff, Jew-hating stuff, Holocaust deniers, if you're a true free speech absolutist, you have to support that. Because otherwise, where do we draw the line as to what constitutes hate speech and so on? That's why, by the way, despite the fact that I personally know Elon Musk, I don't go around saying, hey, Elon, can you please delete this account and this account is spewing, even though I am the direct target of unbelievable Jew hatred that comes my way. Okay? So no one is contesting the fact that Candace Owens, should she choose to go down this rabbit hole, is entitled to do so in a free society. Let better ideas, win out against her nonsense. But again, as I said, this is not a X Spaces on Candace Owens, because I just saw another guy. I don't know his name, but someone else tagged me. I don't know if he's a poker player or something. I noticed him because he's got a Armenian last name, and as you know, my wife is Armenian, Lebanese Armenian, and I went and looked at his stuff, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Jews have institutionalized pedophilia and so on. And by the way, I had a Muslim guy write to me, hey, Gad, can you explain why it is okay for you guys to have sex with 9-year-olds? And I wrote back, and he deleted his tweet. I said, are you sure you want to levy that accusation at me, Muhammad? And then he deleted the tweet. So imagine the chutzpah, imagine the lack of dignity to engage in complete Freudian projection. Just go and follow the history of the marriages of the Prophet of Islam, and then you'll understand the 9-year-old reference. So what hurts me the most is not the fact that people, throw Jew hatred at me. I mean, I've seen it all. I grew up in very, very difficult circumstances in Lebanon. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me is really the purity of my heart, which can't believe that such people exist, right? Even the people who've sent me the most horrifying things to me, who've prayed for my death, and believe me, I don't want to be tooting my own horn. I'm really a good guy. You must have a lot of hate in your heart to wish all kinds of diseases on me. And yet, even those people, I could never muster the kind of hatred that they throw at me, which they throw at me because I'm a Jew, because I'm a Zionist baby killer. What does that mean? Because I support the right of Israel to exist, because most of my extended family lives there, and I don't want them to be eradicated, that makes me a Zionist baby killer? I have to prove to you that I don't want children in any side not to die by going on marches for Palestine? How come you don't go for marches for the Yazidis? So it's a level of expectation that is placed on the Jew that is itself a form of existential Jew hatred. Hey, Jew, if you really want to demonstrate that you're not a Zionist baby killer, why don't you just die quietly and then we will know that you're not pro-genocide? Okay? It's grotesque. Here are what my values are, which anybody who follows me knows this. The two fundamental ideals that shape my life are freedom and truth. The freedom, if you don't have the freedom to say what you want and the freedom to pursue any line of inquiry that you want, then you can't get to truth, right? So these two things go hand in hand, right? I'm a defender of the scientific method. I'm a fighter against superstition, right? Believe whatever stuff you want, just don't impose it on others, because then that would violate the freedom of others to be free of your religion. The second that your religion encroaches 1 millimeter on others, then it should be the enemy of all free people. If Judaism were that, then I would be speaking out against that. But Judaism is not a proselytizing religion, meaning by definition, it doesn't seek to convert others to its tribe. If anything, Jews are accused of the opposite, right? Of being exclusionary. So if Jews were trying to convert others, they'd be bad Jews. And if they do the opposite, which is they don't convert anyone. As a matter of fact, if you try to convert to Judaism, the official canonical position is that you should be tested by consistently dissuading you from coming to the religion. And then you have to go through years of a conversion process before you become Jewish. Now, we can debate whether that's a good marketing plan or not. I would argue, as a professor of consumer behavior and viral marketing and so on, that it's not a very good selling proposition to make it very difficult for people to buy your product. That's why today there are only 15 million Jews, which is probably a bit fewer than there were a number of Jews when the Holocaust began. So Judaism doesn't grow. Judaism is not a threat to anyone, right? It is one of the most benign religions you can imagine. I mean, short of Jainism, Jews just want to be left alone and excel. Now, we can debate whether, well, there is no debate, but, is there an apartheid in Israel? No, there isn't. 20% of Israelis are non-Jews. In Israel, you can be in the Supreme Court as a Muslim. You can be in the Knesset as a Muslim. You can be an officer in the military as a Muslim. There are 1 million mosques in Israel. There are churches in Israel. There are valedictorians from Israeli universities that wear the hijab. It's fucking bullshit that there is no apartheid. There's nothing. There are two people, one of which has thousands of years claim to that land, that the world decided through non-war to negotiate a settlement. You get this piece, we get that piece. And then the Arabs, since 1948, have gone on multiple extermination campaigns in 1948, in 1956, in 1967, in 1973, and on to exterminate all Jews. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. The freeing is from the Jews from those lands. Just go read the stuff. It's not about a piece of contested land. That land has to be Juden-free. Muhammad said, promise me that you will rid Arabia of the Jew. Crack a fucking book. Stop reading TikTok. There is 1400 years of history that tells you that when that ideology, Islam, comes into a society, what happens to people in that society? Where do the indigenous people go to? They disappear magically. It becomes 100% Islamic. I explained recently on my show with Joe Rogan, Egypt used to be Coptic Christian. It's taken many, many centuries, but it is now 10% Copts. Go ask the Copts how they are treated by their Muslim overlords. What happened to the Iraqi Christians and Jews? What happened to the Syrian Christian and Jews? What happened to Lebanon, my home country? Within my lifetime, it used to be a Christian majority country. What happened to it today? Crack a book. Learn history. Islam is an expansionist religion. It's a supremacist religion in that the world needs to be 100% Islamic. The world needs to be united under the flag of Allah. If I'm saying something false, in the comments section, share, don't say, I hate you, Jew. Jews spread lies. No. Contest the specific facts. Is it not true that Islam has the concept of Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb, which means, when translated from Arabic, my mother tongue, that there is the house of Islam and the house of war. What does that refer to canonically? Any land that has been ever occupied by Islam must be reverted back to Islam. That's canonical. God said so. That's why there can't be Jews in Israel. And any land that has not yet been Islamized is under the rubric of the house of war. And then, inshallah, it will become Islamic. So if you study the Islamic canons, they're all there to spread the religion. That's why I've often said that Islam is a brilliant religion, like marketing of religion. Because if your goal is to bring as many customers to your fold, well, Islam is brilliant, Judaism sucks. Because all of the canons of Judaism are against the religion growing. All of the canons of Islam, and I can go through all of them if you wanted, maybe I'll do that in another talk, are there to make it grow. Look, Christianity also went through a proselytizing period, but now it has kind of mellowed out. Now it's a lot more difficult for Islam to go through a reformation because the tools of reformation cannot penetrate when the starting position is that the canonical words, for example, in the Quran, are inerrant and final. Not one harf, not one letter can be changed. And therefore, by definition, you cannot reform that which is eternal and perfect. That's why Islam has not gone through a reformation. Okay. Now, but today's X Spaces is not specifically about Islam, obviously. It's about Jew hatred, of which, of course, Islamic countries are very good at doing. But once you have someone, look, Candace Owens has talent. She has certainly spoken very well about issues that I fight against. All the woke stuff, the fact that if you're black, you should all be voting Democrat. So wait a second, no. Black people have individual brains. They have a right to think differently from other black people. And of course, that's a very liberating message, right? I mean, Martin Luther King would have supported that position. And so I originally saw an ally in Candace, as I did. I mean, she doesn't operate in my world, right? I'm a professor of 30 years, but I'm willing to chat and speak with anybody who has interesting things to say, anybody that I can have a conversation with. That's why I was delighted to chat with her, right? I'm not one of those ivory tower guys that only speaks to fellow professors from Stanford, right? I just want to, in any way that I can, in any small way that I can, contribute positively to the world. So for me, here is Candace Owens that has clearly a talent. She's photogenic, she's a beautiful woman, she can be charming, but for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, she's decided that, her next move is to just go completely, Himmler level Jew hatred. I don't know, maybe one day in 5 years, 10 years, she'll come around. And I really truly hope so. I mean, imagine how amazing it would be if Candace were to come back in 3 years and say, hey guys, I don't know what the hell I went through. I don't know what happened to me. I went down a deep rabbit hole. I'm really sorry. And guess what? I would say, hey, welcome back to reason. no harm, no foul, no harm. Let's move on and do good things. Okay, most people, well, not most people, but a lot of people are redeemable. A lot of people, there's a path of redemption, a path of penance, something which, of course, Christianity is wonderful when it comes to that, and that there is a canonical pathway by which you can improve on bad deeds that you've done. And it can't be a good thing for her to be using her massive platform to be spewing that stuff. And again, someone here might, I shouldn't have to explain this, but let me go ahead and do it. Say, well, how are you different, Dr. Saad? You spread hate on Muslims. No, I don't. I criticize Islamic doctrines that are contrary to our liberties, right? So, for example, uh, let's suppose I were pro pigs, actual pigs, the animal. Well, then I would say Christianity uh, is less friendly to the pigs than are Jews and Muslims. Why? Because Jews and Muslims in their religion have a prohibition against eating pigs, whereas Christians don't, right? So prosciutto is something that's going to be eaten by the Italian Catholic, but the guy from Saudi Arabia or the guy from Tel Aviv, so the Christian, the Muslim and the Jew, if they are practicing and being adherents to their faith, are not going to kill the pork to eat it. So canonical content matters. So if I care about being pro-pig, then I am pro Islam and pro Judaism because I support pigs and that those religions don't kill pigs. If I am against any touching of mutilation of genitals, whether it be female genitals or uh, circumcisions of boy babies, well, then I'm against Judaism and Islam because those religions require circumcision. Christianity doesn't. So when I criticize something, I'm criticizing the ideology. So, for example, if I say, look, communism is antithetical to human nature because it tries to equate equality, it tries to create equality of outcomes when people come in many different abilities and we're not created equal. Humans are a hierarchical species. So communism is literally anti-human because it goes against human nature. Am I attacking Cubans because they are from a communist regime? Am I attacking the Soviet Unions or former Russians because they're communists? No, I'm attacking the specific tenets of communism. So as a matter, look, I not probably, I know for a fact, I've had more friends who were Arabs, not Jewish, right? Muslims, than I have in common with a Polish Jew. Why? Because my culture is Arabic, my language is Arabic, my ethnicity is Arabic. So I don't need to be lectured by assholes about, the fact that there are millions of lovely Muslims. I know them, I meet them. They're my fans. They write to me from all over the Islamic world because they're smart enough to recognize the difference between criticizing tenets that frankly should not be part of the modern world, cutting off the clitorises of little girls because you are keeping them chaste. In Arabic, you say tahara, pure, is not a good idea. That doesn't make me Islamophobic. That makes me pro 5-year-old little girls. Okay? That didn't say anything about my friend Ahmad, whether he's a nice guy or not. When people attack me for being Jewish, they don't say, I disagree with the part in Deuteronomy which I think you abide by, Gad. They say, you are dispositionally a parasite. You're evil. You're a cockroach. You're a pedophile. You're a usurper. You're a liar. You're a cancer. Why am I those things? Because I'm Jewish. Now, that's not just coming from some crazy guy in Yemen. It's coming from Candace Owens types. It's coming from, I didn't know this guy until people again started tagging him with me, Nick Fuentes. Who the fuck is Nick Fuentes? Who's this little cockroach? Yes, I'm going to say cockroach. Not because of the stuff that he spews. How is it that we live in a world where people are emboldened to say such things? It's unbelievable. Okay? So, bottom line, Jew hatred, like any other form of bigotry, is reprehensible. It is a stain on the human spirit. But as I said, not to play victimology poker, there is something very unique about Jew hatred because it is pervasive, it is enduring, it is eternal. Not because that's proof that Jews are evil, that's because it's proof that the human heart is dark. And if you can find the small minority in your midst that you can blame all your problems on, go for it. Throw rocks at the Jew. Okay? Be better than that. Okay? I'm not going to start telling you all of the unbelievable things that Jews have done for the world. Just think about the medical advances that probably every single person listening to this chat has benefited from because of, that parasitic Jew. Be better than that. Judge people by the totality of their merits and flaws. Yes, I'm Jewish. Yes, I'm Lebanese. That's part of my identity. But I present myself to the world as Gad Saad, period. Not Gad Saad the Jew. Not Gad Saad Lebanese. I am Gad Saad. I walk very tall, even though I'm not a tall man. And I walk very tall because I am comfortable in what my personhood is. I have many qualities. I have some faults. Judge me on those. Don't judge me by the fact that there is an accidental reality called I was born into Judaism. Just like I would never judge someone for any of the other immutable traits. Although, your religion is not an immutable trait, right? You could choose not to be in that religion, but it is part of your heritage, right? The Nazis did think that, being Jewish is part of your immutable reality. If there's a blood of Judaism in your ancestry, then off you go to the ovens because you're diseased. Okay? So a world that tolerates that kind of hate will come for you next because hatred spreads truly like stage 4 pancreatic cancer, as we're reminded in the Middle East. As the Islamists tell us, first we come for the Saturday people, then we come for the Sunday people. Meaning that yes, we will start by getting rid of the Jews, but hey, Christians, don't get too comfortable in your homes. We're coming for you, assholes. So there is no room for hatred of any type. But please be careful once you start seeing the normalization of Jew hatred. I left Lebanon in 1975 under horrifying circumstances. When I moved to Canada, for the next 35 years, I lived reasonably free of Jew hatred. Once in a while, someone would say something insane, not knowing that I was Jewish. But generally speaking, I lived free of it. But now, it's come back to haunt me in ways whereby it is no longer feasible for me to go to my university. My university, as you know, is Concordia University. It has been colloquially referred to for over 20 years as Gaza University. Most recently, it's now referred to as Hamas University. Jewish students and Jewish faculty don't feel comfortable going to the university. Never mind me, everybody recognizes me. Okay? Is this the kind of world that you want to live in? Believe me, it's not. Because don't think that after they finish coming for me, they'll stop at me. What made the West the great anomaly in the history of societies is that there were a set of deontological principles that allowed individual dignity to flourish. Once you lose that, once you allow people to come into your country in millions of numbers that don't share in their commitment to those values, I promise you, you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It might take a week to kill you, it might take 5 years to kill you, but you will die. Save this X spaces, replay it, memorize it. It's not because I'm a prophet, it's because I have the honesty to extrapolate from current patterns to what the future holds. Most people are afraid of reality. You know what? It's too scary to think about what's happening. Let me just go about buying my tomatoes for tomorrow's salad and let someone else worry about the problem. But the problem is going to come and get you. If it's not you, it'll be your children. If it's not your children, it will be their children. So, as you know, Ronald Reagan said that in every generation there are all kinds of assholes that try to erase our freedoms. And I'm paraphrasing. I have the actual quote in the parasitic mind. And it is incumbent on us to always put up a vigorous defense in every generation. While the current reality is the most frontal attack on the West's foundational values that we've certainly seen over the past 250 years. And it won't end well, I promise you. Demography is destiny, right? Once the numbers are not in your favor, you will lose your freedoms. So wake up, stop being assholes, stop equivocating, stop doing the whataboutism. There is right and wrong. Okay? Does Candace Owens have the right to say what she wants to say? Yes. I hate that she says it, but she has the right. Is it a good thing that she is so emboldened to openly and proudly say it? No, because that's like when you go to your physician and he says, hey, your blood sugar is high. Hey, you've put on 25 pounds. Hey, your blood pressure is high. Those are indicators that you're going down the wrong path. So with just a few metrics, your physician is able to tell you whether you've just increased your lifespan or reduced it. Well, the metrics right now of our society is that we are going to the abyss of infinite darkness. I promise you that, right? It's not hyperbole. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I could just sit and read a book right now on a Sunday evening. The reason why I do this, because I find that in whatever capacity I can, however big or small the platform I have, it is incumbent for me to try to share whatever knowledge I have so that people make informed decisions, which maybe leads me, I hope I'm not rambling too much here, but I guess that's the point of an X Spaces. And no, I'm not taking requests for questions. If people want to interact with me, they have to subscribe to my content, and there I can certainly interact with you. Which brings me right now to, I wasn't planning on doing this because this was going to be on Jew hatred, but since we're talking about the abyss of infinite darkness that our society is heading towards, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. All right, let's talk about that for a minute or two. When you're choosing a president, it's a cognitive process. When you're choosing the president of the United States, it really needs to be a cognitive process. Why? Because the United States is the holder of freedom around the world. It is the model society that we all aspire to be. It is the refuge of all immigrants who are persecuted in hellish places to aspire to go to. Yes? So when you are choosing who's going to lead that country, it's not your emotive system that should be triggered, as I explain very deeply in the parasitic mind in chapter 2, where I talked about thinking versus feeling. It's not that humans are a thinking or feeling animal, they're both. The problem is when you trigger or activate the wrong system at the wrong time. Activating your emotional system when choosing a president is not a good thing. But now think about what we're hearing from the Harris campaign. It's joyful, it's exciting, it's positive vibes, it's bringing back fun. Are you listening? Are you hearing? It's emotional, it's affective, it's positive vibes, affect, it's joy, affect, it's happiness, affect. There is no substance. Now, most people, as I explained from the Arabic expression, get drunk by smelling the cork of the wine bottle. I just want to feel happy. He's so cantankerous, Trump. He's such a sourpuss. I hate his insults and his put downs. Isn't it better to be with a joyful fucking communists? Isn't it better to be with a joyful person who violates every one of the foundational tenets of the United States. You want to know which ones? Price controls are called communism. Diversity, inclusion, and equity is anti-individual dignity, right? Once you say you want to end up in a place where all people are equal, as she has repeatedly said, you are literally espousing communism. What does communism say? It's unfair that some people own private property and others don't. It's unfair that some people have more income than others don't. There is a benevolent government, a central authority that will make things right. It's compassionate, it's empathetic, it's kind. Communism is kind. Well, that kind of selling point works if you're 5 years old. Once you're no longer 5 years old, you know that that mechanism doesn't work. By the way, all of this will be in my next book, Suicidal Empathy. Communism is an appeal to the empathetic system of a 5-year-old. Sharing is caring. You shouldn't have to own a car. Why don't you have an app that simply allows you to book a car when, by the way, this was proposed by a Danish European parliamentarian in one of those Davos meetings. You see, she's kind. Why should you own a car? Why not just have a community-based app that allows you to share cars? And then I wrote back to her, I said, I agree. Why don't we have sharing of sexual access to our partners? It's not fair that I'm married to a woman with whom I can have sex because we're married. It's not fair that there are all sorts of incels and sexually frustrated homeless guys that can't get access. Why don't we have an app where the homeless guys can say, hey, I'd like to bang your wife on Tuesday. That way, everybody wins. Everybody's happy. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring is great in kindergarten, asshole. Sharing and caring is not how the world works. That's why it's been tried for 100 years, and it has failed in every single society where it has been tried. Venezuela was very wealthy. Communists came in. Look where Venezuela is today. Look what happened to Cambodia. Look what happened to communist Vietnam. Look what happened to China until it's kind of relaxed its communist tendencies. Look what happened in Cuba. Look what happened to the Soviet Union. Look what happened to all of the countries that were behind the Iron Curtain on the Soviet side. It doesn't work because it is contrary to most fundamental precepts of human nature. But yet, it never dies because the phoenix always rises from the ashes to lobotomize a new generation of degenerate idiots. But isn't it fairer if we don't have rich billionaires? Well, Elon Musk paid $11 billion in taxes. That's probably more than what half of the United States paid in totality. What's unfair about that? So he took risks. He had the vision to start his business. And he paid $11 billion. How much did you pay to have the right to live in the United States? But again, communism is the psychology of envy and resentment. I don't like that others have more than me. Put me in power, and then I will met those out equally and fairly. That's what Kamala Harris is saying. Every single nonsensical bullshit that comes out of her mouth is contrary to the foundational values of America. But she's joyful. She cackles. She smiles. She's fun. She's a woman. She's got a vagina. Why would you not vote for her? That's exciting. She's a person of color. By the way, she's a lot less person of color than I am. If you saw my color right now, it's darker than a Yemeni. Because, I'm from the Middle East. Once you put me in my natural habitat with the sun, I become extremely dark. I'm a shitload more of a person of color than she'll ever be. But I don't think I should be president of the United States because of my color of skin. It should be based on the quality of my ideas, how well I speak, how good of a leader I am. Does it seem like she's got those traits? Is Donald Trump a perfect guy? Absolutely not. Is he presidential in his elocution? No, he's not. But guess what? For the current times that we're facing, you want an outsider, someone who can be cataclysmic, not give a shit, right? They say honey badgers don't give an F. Well, guess what? Elon Musk is a honey badger. Donald Trump is a honey badger. It's guys like this that shape history. It's people who are not fence sitters. It's people who speak their mind. Do you remember the interaction that Elon Musk had with someone who was telling him, "Oh, are you worried about this guy who's they're gonna pull their advertising from X?" Remember what he answered? Yeah, go fuck yourself. Oh, let me be clear. Go fuck yourself. And right there, I fell in love with Elon Musk. Because that's the kind of testicular fortitude that you need, whether it's a male or female president. Okay? Justin Trudeau is a female president. Okay? He's a lady boy, right? He's got Margaret Thatcher has got bigger balls than 50 chimps. Chimps, by the way, are reputed to have very big testicles. Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, okay, was someone who could stand, face the Soviet Union. You didn't F with her. So it's not a question about, is the US ready for a female president or not? There's been female president in Pakistan, a highly patriarchal society. So it's not that the world is not ready for female leaders. Most people don't give a shit as long as the leader is good. Does this person seem serious enough, knowledgeable enough, have the necessary profundity to face down the kinds of dangerous people that are in our neighborhoods? And I mean, if you think it's yes, then there's nothing I could say to you. You couldn't come up with a person that is less eloquent, less knowledgeable, less profound, any more idiotic than this utter imbecile. Okay? She played the system. She ascended the hierarchy through knee-level abilities, but that's where her talents end. She's a dolt. So, a couple of days ago, I was at the cafe with my wife. There's an old gentleman, I think he's now 86 years old. We've known him for over 20 years. I first met him at that cafe, but the cafe was under another name when I was working on my first book, The Evolutionary Basis of Consumption. And my wife went to say hello to him. I was just at our table, so I just waved at him, and I wasn't part of the conversation. And then she came back to me very flustered and frustrated. And I said, what's wrong? She said, well, he just told me, he meaning that old gentleman, he's Canadian. I don't know, although I think he might have dual citizenship, I'm not sure. He said, well, I'm going to, I would vote for Kamala Harris. I know that she's a complete disaster. I just hate Trump so much. So that guy's basically said, it doesn't matter what is the consequential substantive evidence that would cause me to not vote for Kamala Harris. I just hate Trump so much. And if you ask him, why do you hate him so much? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, it's because he's an insurrectionist. It's because he's a dictator. It's because he's going to outlaw sex. It's right. It's all kinds of nonsense, not rooted in any reality. Right? One party thinks that women can have 9-inch penises. The other party doesn't. Vote for the one that doesn't think that women with 9-inch penises should share the dressing room with your 8-year-old daughter. I literally would not have to say a single other word, and I've given you enough information for who you should vote for. Vote for the party that is going to adhere more closely to the foundational principles of the United States. And it's not communist, lobotomized Kamala. She's an affront to adulthood. She knows nothing. She says nothing. She's read nothing. She hasn't done anything. All right, folks. I think my blood pressure is too high. Time to go and relax. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to my exclusive content. I do many things there. One of the things I do is I post exclusive book recommendations. I post articles, academic articles that I think are cool, that I think you might enjoy reading. Whenever I do exclusive X spaces where I open it up to the audience, it'll only be usually for my subscribers. So there's way more benefits that you get than the $6 by the way, I just ordered a latte today in Montreal. It's, I think, 6.50. So you can order a latte, or you can subscribe, if for no other reason than to support those who are trying to defend truth, trying to defend our liberties. I would certainly appreciate it. Academia is becoming very difficult for me to handle, so I'm looking at all sorts of exit strategies, which pains me to say because I am a professor in my DNA. But I'm telling you, it's not easy to be me in academia in general, and at my university in particular. So anything that you could do that you could support me would be much appreciated. I wish you all a great evening. I hope that you found this helpful. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your attention, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers, everybody.